Thank you so much for having me. It is such a pleasure to be here. I spend so much of my day-to-day thinking a lot about you all and how to make HubSpot better for you. And I'm so thankful for all of your feedback always. And I'm going to use a big chunk of today to ask you all questions, and we'll do our best to make sure that there's plenty of time for me to answer your questions as well. My name is Maggie Mirsky. I'm a product lead. I think about data setup. I have been at HubSpot for about 5 years, and I'm based in the great state of Rhode Island. So I live about an hour-ish from our main HubSpot office. And, oops. Whoa. Okay, there we go. Okay, I'm gonna do a little bit of highlighting of stuff that we released in 2024 and some current open betas, which I think are pretty cool, and I want to make sure to get input from you all. Also, we'll definitely encourage you all to join them. I'm gonna, as I said, ask you a bunch of questions and then do my best to have plenty of time for Q&A. All right, we are gonna jump right into a demo. Okay, and oops. Okay, give me 1 second. I want to make sure I'm sharing the right thing. Okay, can you all see the object library?
Yes.
Okay, cool. All right, if you have not seen this part of HubSpot, it is you go to settings, you go to data management, and you go to the object library. I wanted to plug that last year we released 4 new objects, and they are available for everyone. So regardless of your tier or hub, you get access to appointments, courses, listings, and services. If you are interested to learn more about any of these objects, you can click details. And it'll give you the out-of-the-box properties as well as the associations that come with this. So service is associated to appointments, companies, contacts, etc. These objects are pretty fully baked. We think of them as just an extension of the HubSpot data model. I've seen some people refer to them as custom objects, but they're very much supported and available across HubSpot. And so when you toggle them on, you'll see all of the places that they are supported. This is actually kind of a short list. It's like all of this and more. And so when you enable that object, it'll start showing up truly everywhere from your nav. It'll show up down here. It'll show up on the index page and reports and listings. Truly, like, we really intentionally got very broad support. And the intention here is just to enable you all to store more data in HubSpot more easily, especially if you don't have an enterprise license and so you don't have custom objects. We want to make it easier for you to store information about your customers and your business in HubSpot. If there are other objects that you all are like, wow, this would be really helpful for me, I'm ending up having this in an extra system and it's kind of a mess, or I'm smooshing this into deals or tickets or contact properties, please tell us. We're kind of eagerly listening for other ways that we can be thoughtfully extending our data model. Okay, while we are here, I also want to highlight a kind of long-awaited beta, in my opinion, and I'm pretty excited about it. So if you go through this same details flow, you'll see a pencil icon next to any of the objects on this page. And if you click it, you can rename your object. So let's say my company used the term organization. You can go ahead and enter that and hit save, and you will pretty quickly see that reflected most places. So we're currently in a private beta. The key gap that we're closing right now is that we have a fair number of properties that include the name of the object, for example, company domain name. And so we're working on, especially those kind of HubSpot default properties, auto updating that name. And then we're also trying to make sure that the nickname or rename of your object is reflected in all of the different workspaces. But you'll pretty quickly see when you, so again, we changed companies to organizations. So if you go to your nav, you will see it reflected there, and it is pretty consistently updated across the vast majority of HubSpot. Again, we're working on closing any of the kind of outstanding gaps, but pretty excited about that functionality. Do I have any questions before I move to my next thing?
I have a question.
Yeah, go for it.
So people were sounding off in the chat with other objects they would like to see in this object library. I see deliverables, territories, offices, events. What are your thoughts on adding more of those or creating a custom object versus just renaming one of fees that are provided here?
Yeah, that's been an interesting theme that I've been surprised by how much that conversation has kind of blended together of custom objects and renaming. The renamed object, any of these objects come with a set of defaults and somewhat of an opinion. Some of our objects are much more opinionated than others. Like contacts, for example, comes with a bunch of specific functionality around email and interaction. Listings comes with a lot of properties that are relevant to a physical property. So like a building, it has like square footage, number of bathrooms, etc. Custom objects are really intended to be used for things that are very specific to your business. So anything that is a custom concept or custom idea. I'm not going to sit here and say, like, obviously people are going to do whatever it takes. You all are very creative. You'll get the data into the right format. But I think in this moment, if it feels like it's an object type that would be helpful for everyone in your industry or kind of with your use case, we're pretty eager to know that. And there's a potential that we'll add more objects. If it feels like it's something that's really unique to your business, I would recommend using a custom object. I mean, you obviously could go forth and rename an object and add a bunch of custom properties. I'm not going to say you can't do that. If you have access to custom objects, we would definitely recommend that because you have kind of the ultimate level of customization. Did I answer the question?
Yeah, no, I think that was a great answer. Thank you. And then someone, I've lost it. John asked, is there anywhere that the name does not get changed in like reports or settings or anything?
So the couple that we're really actively working on closing right now are what I said before about kind of like some of those default property names. So like company owner, contact owner, we're working to have that part of the flow, and the sales workspace, the help desk, and the customer success workspace are not currently reflecting those renamed versions, and we're working on making those updates as well. There are a couple of other edges, like, we're trying to make sure that permissions, like there are a couple of parts of settings that we're working through. And so I'm not going to say even when we get to public beta, we may not be at 100% coverage, but we're trying to get as close as possible. But just to kind of like show you really quickly. So if we go here, we have organizations, you can see that got reflected immediately. And these tabs actually showed up correctly. This is like a brand new portal, so I don't have anything in here, but your column names might actually, and I think actually all of these look correct, right? So organization, these are the associations, but some of the kind of generic column names like company name and company owner, those aren't getting updated quite yet. But if you went to anything like lists, you should see the name reflected as well. So here you can see organizations. So we've done our best to get like pretty substantial coverage, and we're continuing to close gaps as they come up.
Amazing.
All right, I'm going to switch gears and keep us going. Okay, hopefully you all are familiar with the data model overview. We think about it as this kind of visualization where you can click on objects, see their associations, learn information about every single object, all that jazz. And over the years, we've gotten a lot of feedback that's like, okay, but what can I do here? Like, it's helpful to be able to see things, but I can't do enough. And so we now have in beta the ability to edit your data model. And so the intention here is that all within one space, you can do a whole bunch of things. So you could, for example, go ahead and create a property. This is like a pretty fast creation process, but we're gonna continue to kind of iterate and make it as quick as possible. So all within that one flow, I made a property and now I can see it under my recently created properties. And I can also click to view all. And so within this screen that is honestly the best that I've ever been able to like visually wrap my head around associations, we have this new view. So you can see all of the objects that are associated to contacts. And then without kind of even needing to leave this context, you can go ahead and you can create an association label. So, I mean, let's say we're adding like an influencer label. I can go ahead, check that it looks correct, and then quite quickly see that new label get loaded. So our intention here is to really streamline and create a singular space where you can do all your data model configurations. I'm in a pro portal, so I can't create a custom object, but if you are in an enterprise portal, you could create your custom objects here, create your association labels here, and we're really trying to streamline everything. And so the next phase will pretty much replicate and shift over everything I just showed you in the object library. In the longer term goal, we're really trying to strategize the best way to make it so that all things related to objects, associations, and properties can be managed within this one central kind of visual space. And we're hoping to take everything that you like about settings and then make it way better and make it so you have to click around a lot less. So again, this is in beta right now, and we will kind of continue to add more awesome functionality into this space. Okay, and then I think my last thing that I wanted to plug is that last year we shipped a couple of templates or kind of like set of industry recommendations. So for pro customers, there's real estate and education. If you are an enterprise customer that has sensitive data, there's also one for healthcare. And then we currently have a beta that we are planning to roll out over the next few weeks, which uses Breeze to automatically generate information about automatically generate a customized data model recommendation. And we use information that we have about your company. You can also give us information as well. So we look at your portal domain and we gather information, specifically this set, to provide a set of recommendations. For the purpose of this demo, I'm going to imagine that I run a plumbing company. I think that I set my domain as Roto-Rooter, which I think of as like a pretty big plumbing entity. And so when I go ahead and hit generate, it should be taking that information about what I provided I'm looking for, as well as information that HubSpot already has about your company to generate a customized data model recommendation. And it's usually pretty fast. Kyle said this is one of his favorite things to demo because it's always a little different, which is a little stressful for me, but also exciting. I think, it's definitely the power of AI to see what kind of good recommendations you can get. All right, so my outcome is a set of recommendations for facility services. It says a recommended data model for facility services companies to track customers' plumbing issues and the status of service delivery. That all makes sense. The nice thing is that you then have the option to choose to apply whatever makes sense to you. And so you can change the name of something. So if you didn't want the word issue type, you just wanted issue name, you can change that. We tell you what property options come up. So these are fun ones like clogged drain, leaking pipe, sewer backup, water heater issue, or other. There's kind of basic things like preferred contact method. If you decided you didn't care about something like frequency of issues, which is one time or recurring, you can uncheck it and then it won't get applied. You can also get things like association labels. So this is between contacts and tickets. And so each contact can be associated to many tickets with the label support ticket. Again, if you wanted to update that language to support issue, you can do that all kind of within this nice streamlined UI. And you really have the ability to, the intention here is to get you up and running or get you kind of recommendations around common terminology and practices in setting up your data model. So this is a pretty robust set. I'm not going to go through every single one. Would recommend you do before you apply it. Last one I'll flag is that there is a deal pipeline that is included here. And so again, you can change any of the labels if they don't make sense to you. So this is new request scheduled, in progress, awaiting parts. So let's say you wanted to change this to be blocked. You can hit apply and it'll immediately get reflected as well. So as soon as you get to the place where you're like, okay, cool, this makes sense. I've gone through, I've checked everything. You can hit next. It'll give you a summary of the changes. If that feels like too many changes, you can always go back and then you can go ahead and hit confirm. I think it's pretty cool. You go from kind of no customizations to a bunch in a pretty short amount of time. And we're really, I think this is kind of just the tip of the iceberg. We're really eager to explore different types of recommendations that we can provide you all to accelerate folks' use of HubSpot or really deepen it. I think this is probably most helpful for a newer portal, but I could imagine a future where we provide a set of recommended reports or workflows that might make sense for either your industry or your use case. Okay, I think that is the majority of the stuff that I wanted to get through. Would recommend you all check out these 2 tabs. They're not going to be particularly exciting in this portal because it's brand new, but last year we did release this ability to track your data limits for records, associations, properties, association labels, and pipelines. And then this analysis tab is not super exciting because I made my portal yesterday, but it shows you the ability, or it's the chart that is showing you a breakdown of per object type, what is the source of creates, deletes, updates, and merges. And so it's a nice thing to check every so often to just make sure that things are behaving correctly and kind of make sense in terms of how your data should be getting into HubSpot, updated, etc. Okay, I think those are all of my features I was hoping to cover.
Neil just asked in the chat, how effective would the Breeze recommendation be on an established but imperfect install? Do you want to talk about new setup versus optimizations for existing customers?
I mean, my thing is like, it can't hurt. It's all additive and you get to choose what you apply. And so I would recommend going through the flow and seeing what comes up. I think hopefully it's some inspiration or like an idea of another way you could be using HubSpot functionality. You may say, wow, we actually have a bunch of that covered already, but even if it's just adding one pipeline super quickly, that feels worthwhile to me. And we'll continue to iterate on different ways to get those recommendations or just use AI to accelerate your data model configuration. Okay, can I ask my questions or are there other?
Yeah, no, I think go for it.
Okay. All right. So I just want to say, let's make setting up and using HubSpot's data model as simple as possible. That's definitely the goal. And so eager to get your input on the best way to approach that. So I'm curious for all of you, what is the most time-consuming part of setting up your data model? What is like slows you down and you feel like it's just way more inefficient than it needs to be? Okay, so this is people will respond to the chat now, right?
Bulk property creator via CSV import. Got a couple of those.
Interesting. Can somebody add more context on the bulk property creator and what's so time consuming about it?
Salim, if you want to raise your hand, we can bring you on stage. This is a thing I've heard a lot of requests for, Maggie, and I think there's actually an app that in the marketplace that does this, but I'm a little unclear on what it specifically needs to do.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yep. So I've worked with a lot of HubSpot partners, and a lot of our initial work is data architecture that's happening mainly outside of HubSpot. And once the data architecture is clear, be it based on an integration with another system or just a net new HubSpot portal, we have a giant, CSV of all the objects, all the properties, and everything ready in a CSV. And we always end up having to create a custom tool internally that leverages the API. That way we can feed a CSV and auto create all of these properties. We just simply wish there was an out of the box HubSpot tool. That way we don't have to build a custom one. And that is based on three partners that I worked with, and every single one of them had an internal custom tool for that.
Yeah, interesting. We're starting to dig into a concept of kind of like what I was showing you with recommendations or templates where I can't say we're committing to this, but we're digging into whether or not partners could create a set of recommendations. And I think you could probably have potentially two versions of that, right? One that might be available in a marketplace and one that you might use yourselves, where you could add a collection of configurations and then kind of batch apply. But I know that kind of like cross-portal migration or setup can be really tricky.
Yeah. One thing to note that while having like preset like templates is valuable, there are a lot of cases where with custom integrations where the models are super custom, and having the ability to set those properties up do our property matching and then just upload a CSV would be extremely valuable.
I see. Okay. So yeah, the ability to bulk create properties via CSV, where you're just defining what the property name and property type.
So we're defining property label, property internal value, property type, and if there's enumeration, we're also defining enumeration labels and enumeration internal values.
Okay. Interesting. Kyle, can everyone else hear what Selim just said?
Can everybody hear Celine?
Okay.
Yes. Okay.
I was just if you're having issues with sound, just go ahead and reboot your browser.
Yeah, just refresh it.
Okay. I'm scrolling back up. Thank you so much. That was super helpful. We got interpreting what our business team needs. Let's dig into that. Is there a way that HubSpot can be helping you interpret what your business team needs? I don't know if anyone answered. Okay, we'll keep going. All right, I see a bunch of other properties related stuff, which is interesting. I think somebody said like bulk updating options. That makes a ton of sense to me. I think that there is this like, I don't know if it's a growing trend, but definitely common usage where people make similar properties across multiple object types and they want them to kind of behave pretty similarly. I'm just scrolling really quickly.
Just came in at the bottom. Connor says, one major frustration is getting the entire data model built out, placing the properties in their correct objects, then seeing users duplicate properties using the wrong type and or placing them in the wrong object. I would love to see Breeze make suggestions to use existing properties rather than create a new one. This is something that came up on the Monday morning briefing I run yesterday also, that just in the property creation flow, it would be cool if Breeze could do like AI powered fuzzy matching, right? Like to say like, oh, you're creating a birthday property, but we already have a date of birth property. So maybe don't do that, for example.
Absolutely. I agree. That seems really cool. I will advocate for it. I have no idea how possible that is technically, but I absolutely understand the intention there. And it seems like a reasonable, not too far off future for us. Okay, I want to respond to Anastasia and then I think maybe go on to my next question. So Anastasia, you said, do data models provide a view to show automations reference between objects such as roll-up field or workflow that updates contact property based on deal update? So I think what you're saying is aligned to a pretty common piece of feedback that my team gets, which is being able to see how the data is flowing between objects and various records. And I agree. I think that like, a lot of times there's a challenge of, oh, if I make this update, what am I going to break or what else is going to be impacted? How do we help you with that? Like, what is an ideal version of that experience? Because I absolutely understand the goal, but I have always struggled to think through like what that might look like. So if anyone has ideas on how you'd want to see like the lineage or way in which data is moving across properties, please tell me.
I will mention here while people are typing that, oh no, Anastasia, are you trying to talk?
We can't hear you, but we can make that.
We can bring you on stage if you would like. Oh, there she is.
Yeah, so if there was like a drop down within the data model, so you know how you can go viewing all objects, if there was something else where you could do view connections or view like connectivity even, just so it also touches that way, and then like the type could either be property, like if it's a calculation or a roll up, what something that touches, or if it's a workflow that would update cross object, and then it does the actual lines. So you can like click and say, hey, okay, here's everything that touches between the contact and the deal. Oh, this one property actually seems to be a lookup, and then it continues being looked up across from deal to contact to company or custom objects, because I think that's where a lot of duplicate and conflicting actions happen. So people are like, oh, I really need this property that does this. You could check to see if there's already one that, like a workflow that is doing an update between contact and deal at the same event, that they can update the existing workflow rather than creating a new one that either conflicts or just creates noise.
Yeah, so it seems like there are a couple things. One is being able to see, like, just seeing the flow of data, but also seeing maybe all of the connections between properties. So like, oh, do we already have a set of workflows that are updating contact properties from deal properties? Is that right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, cool. This is super helpful. I'm going to keep us moving. Thank you all. Lots to digest. I'll definitely do another spin through the questions later, or it's feedback later. Okay. What are your biggest data pet peeves? Please chime in the chat. Dirty data, for sure. Okay, Caitlin, I know that there's active work going on in that space. Duplicate properties. So I feel like we should have had a word cloud or something to see the trends here. Unprofiled data, duplicates. Okay.
So Jeremy mentioned lazy people, and everybody else is mentioning duplicates. I spoke at an event a few weeks ago, and an attendee came up to me and requested that we build a dashboard that shows which users have created the most duplicates so they can be punished.
But we're talking about duplicate records, not duplicate property types. Is that right?
Oh, I see.
Or are we talking about both? Both. Okay. I see.
Oh, it happens to both, for sure.
Okay. Yep. Property management. It's getting like a little violent in the chat. Okay. Interesting. Okay. Wow. Such a property leaning space. Cody Lopez, I saw that you said inboxes automatically creating contacts. Can you say a little bit more about that, either in the chat or tell us if you want to come off mute?
Yeah, I think we ideally would be able to use our shared inboxes or help desk more effectively, but because these are shared inboxes like sales at, customer service at, things like that, we get a ton of spam to those email addresses. Oftentimes it's where we would like to send HubSpot notifications for things that need to go to the group as a whole, as opposed to individuals, and every single email that goes there, even if they're on the never log list, it creates a new contact.
Oh, interesting.
And that is a huge hindrance, and one of the reasons that we haven't been able to adopt it for years now. Just having automatic contacts create every single time any email comes into a shared inbox.
Yeah, I know a bit about the inbox, but I'm definitely not a pro, but I will pass that feedback along. That's super helpful context.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay. Lots of good stuff in here. I think I'm going to keep us moving, but thank you all. And if you have other pet peeves, please keep adding them into the chat. Okay, this is something I've been thinking about a little bit. We kind of have a version of this, but if you had an admin dashboard, what information would you want in it? How would you want to get alerted? I'm guessing we want some duplicate information, just a hunch. But I'm curious, like if there was a space that was just for you, what kind of information would you want tracked in it? Okay, new properties created, activity. Yeah, I agree, Anastasia. I think that kind of an admin-oriented log of actions would be quite helpful. Oh, interesting, Chris. Okay, AI-specific stuff. Broken workflows, duplicates. Marketing contact velocity. Paul, love the enthusiasm for an admin dashboard. Okay. Integrations. All right. These are great tips. Yep. Limits. Okay.
I will be exporting this chat out and sharing it with Maggie as a CSV. So
Yeah.
keep it coming.
Yeah. It's super helpful. Honestly, I've been thinking about this quite a bit. So these like concrete examples are quite helpful.
Casey said, I don't necessarily want to be notified about duplicates, but I do care when people are doing admin actions like creating properties and workflows. I'm going to call that one out.
Yeah. This is like all in my head. So just, as many caveats as possible. But we have this feature, the audit log, that I think is powerful, but doesn't have enough coverage, and I think is a little hidden, honestly. And so I would love to have a kind of more filterable version of that, so you could easily see who's creating properties, who's updating workflows, kind of what's changing, so you can have a good handle on it. And that way, if something doesn't go according to plan, you can at least kind of find the information easily.
One thing I'll mention there is I see a lot of updates coming to the audit log. It seems to be getting more and more stuff all the time, but it's not in any way opinionated. If you go to it, it's just like a list of all the things that have ever happened in your portal at all. Whereas if you go to like the security center, it's very different. It's like, hey, here are the things we think you should be checking out.
I'll definitely pass this along to the PM. The PM who used to own the security center now owns the audit log, and so I'm sure.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I'm sure they would love that positive praise, but also I think they're trying to figure out how to make the audit log as like powerful and helpful as it could be. All right. Love this. Thank you all. This is like such helpful inspiration and input as we all think about the next phase. Okay, this is my last question for you all, and then I'll just be around to answer questions. So if you had an assistant that could do HubSpot tasks for you, what would you want it to take over? I know that there are things that you probably want to do yourselves, but if you had a, maybe not quite at your level, but an assistant who you could say, please do these tasks for me, what would they do for you? Wow, dupes. What a theme of the day. Ooh, enter tons of our historical data. So much data cleanup. Get my sales team. Good stuff.
So many dupes.
I
Nobody
know.
wants to clean up their own portals. I'm going to take that away.
Yeah.
I saw permission.
I know, I did too. These responses are coming so fast that it's hard to keep tabs on. Oh yeah, Jessica, you said permission management. Can you share more about what would be helpful there?
I'm interested to hear what she says, but it just occurs to me like it wouldn't even require AI or something. If you have a user who over the course of like 3 months does not access a tool or a feature they have permission to use, if those permissions just clamp down and they lost access.
Oh, interesting. I was thinking about it the opposite way, Kyle. I thought you were going to end on like, if they haven't used it, like send them a nudge and say, hey, why aren't you, make sure you use this cool new thing.
Yeah. My guess is customers tend to give more access than they should.
Be permissive. Yeah, I think that's right. Okay,
Yeah.
Jessica, what would be helpful?
Jessica, if you're talking, we can't hear you. You might have to update your browser.
Yeah.
I think we'll have to come back.
Okay. Yeah. Aurora, I would love to dig into what you said around new user onboarding with timed videos or walkthroughs and a resource location for existing users to review the how-tos. That concept's so interesting to me and also appealing. Is that something that, like, tell me how that would work ideally for you?
Hi. Yeah. I think so. You would have to be able to customize it based on what like position the individual is in. So, you know, some level of allowing a customization for this. But essentially, I was an admin at my old company for about 4 years with HubSpot. And depending on how quickly like there was turnover or how fast we were growing, I would be the one who was showing them around the system. It wasn't usually their manager. It was, I take at least an hour to show them this is the basics of HubSpot. And then these are the specifics tied to your role. This is what's expected of you in the deal pipeline. So you really understand how you go about each piece of the puzzle and how you make sure that your email is connected accurately and which objects we want you to have auto log and not and things like that. And then just like showing them the tasks, like all of the little things that help them really be efficient in HubSpot was hard to kind of make sure everyone got that same level from me. I created a dashboard for users. Like I made a bunch of videos. I linked them in a dashboard for like onboarding and stuff like that. But it would be nice to be able to make that a better process that can be more like, hey, let me show you how to get to this resource page. And I want to be able to see, have they actually done any of those? Like, have they watched any of the videos? Because maybe they're asking me a lot of questions, like, how do I do XYZ? And I can go look back and be like, well, you didn't watch any of the training content. So let's go through that first.
Yeah. So it seems like you want to be able to create content that shows up in particular parts of HubSpot, kind of ideally maybe multiple versions customized based on that user's role in your organization. And then you want to be able to track kind of interaction with that content. Is that accurate?
Yes and no. I think some of that would be really helpful for certain like objects, especially if there's a new object created to like make sure that anyone who is sick that day can see how you use that object. But more so like when you create a new user or when a user's access gets changed, like maybe their team switches or something, to allow to send them like, hey, this is your onboarding package essentially as a user in our HubSpot system based on your access level and team. And then they get like, here's a couple of the initial resources. And then maybe like on a weekly basis or a monthly basis, like roll out, this is the next piece of information you might need, or every day, here's your like, these are your onboarding tasks for today. I know there's a lot of companies that will like customize something like that and create tasks in a contact object for users so that they get those assignments. But building out the user object could be helpful to be able to then tie like these are your onboarding tasks assigned as a user rather than creating you as a contact in the system, stuff like that.
Okay, cool. Thank you for walking us through that. Jessica, did we get your audio working?
I think it's not going to work.
Okay. Okay. I have one follow-up question, and then I will answer your questions, which is kind of an extension of this same one, which is if there was like an AI functionality that could do a task, summarize something for you in HubSpot, is there anything that really comes to mind that would be quite helpful? So what if you specifically had like an AI tool that HubSpot could build tomorrow? What is your magic wand wish for what that AI functionality could do? An AI changelog. Summarize where users' profile are spending most of their time. Okay. Oh, interesting. Okay. Jeremy, so spicy. Interesting. Okay. Pattern recognition for recurring data hygiene issues. Get rid of emails logged. So like we got some cleanup, we got some analysis, a lot of like data quality related stuff. Okay. Keep those coming in. I think let's shift to the Q&A. What's our top question?
Great. Yeah. So everyone, I'm going to start taking your questions from the Q&A for Maggie. Same process as usual, most upvoted to least upvoted. So hop into that Q&A panel, upvote the questions you most want to hear, ask any questions that we haven't covered so far, and we'll get through as many as we can in the 15 minutes we have left.
Yeah. Should I start at the top with Connor's question?
I'm not even there yet. Sure. Yeah. That has 15 upvotes compared to second place, which has 5. So maybe that's a good one to start with.
Awesome. First of all, hi, Connor. Thanks for the question. Okay. For both associations and tags, can we please allow admins to create their own colors rather than be stuck with the limited options? Also, since 10 to 15% of people are colorblind, it would be great to allow for textures. For associations, can we allow for the colors, but also icons? Oh, interesting. Seems cool where you could choose hex colors or provide a variety of options. Definitely happy to pass this along to the team that owns the boards as well as property options. We've talked over time around creating better visibility around association labels, and I think that would make a ton of sense. So I'm not aware of any kind of work within this space in particular, but I absolutely understand the intention of making it easier to understand something visually and kind of get the information you need quite quickly. So we'll pass it along and love that recommendation. And thanks for thinking about accessibility.
So Lindsay asked, can the data model show properties that are syncing?
We are exploring that. And I think kind of back to the earlier conversation about being able to see data and how it's moving, it seems like people are particularly interested in seeing at the property level, both like, how is this property getting updated? And it seems like sync is one way that people are interested in. If it's getting updated by a workflow, it seems like that's also important. So we're definitely digging into it. We know that people want that level of information to be able to see and understand their data lineage. So we're exploring that. Definitely something that is a trending piece of feedback for sure.
It's interesting. One follow-up question I have, I guess, for you, Maggie, but maybe also for Lindsay who asked the question. Sync can mean a couple different things. We have sync properties, but we also have data sync. Are we talking about visibility for integration syncing, or are we talking about visibility for properties connected to each other in the CRM?
I appreciate the clarification. I was thinking about it from integrations, like data getting synced from another system, but I think it's helpful for us to see both, right? Like if we want to see how data is flowing, I think seeing if data is synced from one property to another is very helpful, as well as this is coming from some sort of integration that I have set up. So my assumption is both would be helpful, but Lindsay, definitely chime in if there's more context on that question.
Yeah, I assumed you were talking about integrations. Just it would be really interesting if I'm looking at a particular property to see how many field mappings that's a part of. Like this could be updated by any of these 4 external systems. Whereas like synced properties, that's a different property type. So I assume it's pretty simple in the UI to just like mark it as this is a sync property, right? Like the value can't be updated here or whatever.
Yeah, within property management, you can definitely filter on what are all my sync properties, but yes. So I think that is also why I was focused on integrations, but I think I can understand why all of the above could be helpful.
Cool. Paul asked, I've seen discourse on LinkedIn about how changing object names, though initially convenient, disconnects the object from the knowledge base, which still refers to the default object name. What are your thoughts on this?
Good question, Paul. We are working with the folks at HubSpot who own the knowledge base and are kind of actively thinking about the best strategy for that. I mean, I think in a super cool future, we could like have AI-powered knowledge base articles that would interpolate or like pull in the configured name for an object. I think that's probably a bit far off. You will always be able to see the base name somewhere in HubSpot, and for you all as admins, you can always see the object ID in the URL. But I would say that's kind of a work in progress. We're continuing to work with the team that owns the knowledge base articles on the best way to approach that. So I don't have like a full answer quite now, but we are aware of it, and we're definitely thinking through making sure that the content still feels quite helpful. I think there's also probably a future where you can access a lot of the knowledge base article or content within HubSpot, kind of within an AI chat experience, in which case, hopefully we can make it a bit more flexible. So it doesn't need to be so kind of customized per portal.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think one possible short-term fix, I think of like a list, apps in the app marketplace. Well, there's a little sidebar that says this is compatible with your HubSpot instance, or this is not. And like, if there was just a little sidebar in the knowledge doc that was like, this is talking about companies at your organization. Companies are called organizations or whatever.
Yeah, I think we will probably add like kind of a blanket, check your object name to start. But I think there's hopefully a longer term future where we can be a little bit more portal aware.
Yeah, very cool. Let's see. Chris says, in June, there is a breaking change coming related to using object IDs versus object names for custom objects. Can you explain what that means for people worried about current integration and or custom coded actions and workflows and or CMS Hub API calls?
I can actually speak to that, Chris. So pretty much we're closing an undocumented gap, which is that you can use our APIs and do /deals. And people realize that if you did / the name of your custom object, that you can access information in the same way. That has the potential to cause issues. So it's not uncommon that people have a bunch of custom objects that we then go on to make a HubSpot created object. And so if you are still doing, for example, we released the service object last year, there are a lot of people who had a service custom object. So if you continue to use /service, you might end up with the wrong data. And so we're just encouraging people to use the already documented paths of using the fully qualified name or the object type ID. It should not have, based on my understanding of a conversation that we were having in Slack this morning, it should not impact your CMS Hub API calls.
Cool. I had no idea what Chris was talking about, so I'm glad you're on top of it. In terms of property cleanups, deleting old properties, we are struggling with the ones which are associated with several assets. In the meanwhile, it has become possible to delete and archive such properties even if they are used in views. It would be great if it would be possible to even delete them if they are used in other assets like lists, even if this then destroys such a related asset.
Yeah, interesting. Right. So I don't actually know if it's in beta or release, but I know that they've made it so you can delete properties that have like what we call weak usages. So things like views that aren't kind of like tied to a workflow. I think that's a little bit of an open question for that team. I think we'd be pretty weary about saying, go ahead and delete something and then it breaks a bunch of stuff, or it just has unforeseen consequences, especially if it's something that you can't kind of like easily roll back. So I think a little bit TBD, but Potentially. We know that the ability to clean up and alter your data model is a challenge for folks for sure.
Something I saw in the chat earlier that I feel like is related to this is when people have properties that are duplications of each other, merging and removing one there's no clear way to do that right now. And it would be pretty cool if we could just say these two properties are essentially the same. If a record has a value in this one and not in this one, keep that. And if one or the other is used to workflow, use this one. Like,
right.
It would be
So,
thorny, but I think it would be helpful.
Yeah, I agree. Well, we have that kind of when you're merging records, right? But doing that at the property level is a little tricky because
I imagine there's a lot more to it.
And so dozens of records.
Yeah.
But yeah, totally got it.
Carl says, is there a plan to expand the ability to email other objects? As a financial institution, being able to email our members through here would be nice. We do a lot of cross-selling to our members based on lead scoring and behavioral events on our website. Currently, we have gotten it to work with a member's custom object and the audio associations to a contact record, but would be less clunky if it was a default setup.
Yeah, I've actually seen this as like an interesting trend in feedback. I think that there's work happening on email property. So you could have like a properly or maybe that exists already, but the ability to store email specifically on other records. I don't know, but I know that it's come up kind of increasingly that people find it really clunky that they always have to go to the contact when often they might be emailing or like be oriented around a custom object or another object type. I think it's possible. There's obviously, if it's like a one-to-many, I think that will always go through contacts because we have marketing contacts so built out and around that experience. For the more kind of like one-to-one direct email experience, I am not sure, but I will say I know that it's a trend. And so I think we'll continue to keep an eye on it and determine if it makes sense to build.
Cool. Paul says, can we treat users as more of a standard object in the data model? For example, I want to be able to bulk import user custom properties, such as a company start date, but that is currently not possible.
I think the user object could probably use some love. And so I can't say confidently that that's being actively worked on, but in general, I'm like here to say I want as many objects as possible to behave as similarly as possible because I think it makes it easier for everyone. So I will definitely pass along that feedback. I can't speak to if there's any specific kind of work in flight on that front.
There was a while there, a year or two ago, users were getting all kinds of updates. They got like their own record page and they got property type things. And then it's been crickets for a little while. I don't know what happened.
Yeah.
Cody says, are there plans to create more associations for what Kyle commonly refers to as baby objects? I don't think that's a phrase I've ever used. Thinking of custom quotes or invoices with custom objects, for example.
This one I can very confidently answer. The answer is yes, Cody. And so we're exploring the concept of kind of per portal enablement. So I think that there are some associations that would make sense for certain businesses, but probably not for everyone. And so definitely active work going on to expand the number of objects that can be associated to custom objects, as well as the number of objects that can be associated to each other. For example, if you work in real estate, it might make sense to associate listing and service to each other. If you work in if you work in landscaping, it probably doesn't make sense in the same way. And so we're really exploring ways to give you all the power to make your data model more flexible. And so that's something that the association teams I know are actively working on.
Cool. Connor's back with another colors question. Most users get lost when looking at the screen because every record looks the same. So how about a different color background or an icon in the upper left corner so people know if they are looking at a contact rather than looking at a company record? Without this,
go for it, Kyle.
Without this, I deal with users jacking up the data model by adding their own properties in the wrong object just because they want everything all on one screen. So along with colors and icons, allow cross-object cards somehow.
Cross-object. I was with it until that last bit about cross-object cards.
So, this is a thing I hear a lot. On the left-hand side of records, you can choose properties to be displayed, but only for the current record. So like contacts can only display contact properties there. People would really love to have like a company properties card and a This
Oh,
is
I
something you can
see.
do
So,
in
like,
the center column,
yeah.
but not on the sidebar.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. The center column stuff is very cool, but I know that it's sometimes a bit underutilized. I think there's a lot of energy being spent on how to make the record page kind of like more scannable. I don't know more than that, but I think people are thinking a lot in this space.
Cool. We have about 90 seconds left. So rather than continuing through questions, Maggie, any last thoughts, or if people want to follow up with you, any CTAs here for this?
Yes. Sorry. One, can I answer Tobias's question really quickly?
Sure. Yeah, I would love for you to answer Tobias's question.
It's been like one of the top trending feedbacks. We will definitely provide lead renaming support, I would guess, in kind of like the June, July, August timeframe. It has come up quite a bit. We're all on board. So forthcoming soon. Please feel free to follow me and message me on LinkedIn. I'm always eager for your feedback. If you ever want to chat, actually, can I just like provide my meeting link in the
Absolutely. Chat? Yeah, if you want to drop that in the chat.
Yeah, please just sign up. I always want to hear from you. My team and everyone at HubSpot is so focused on making sure we are building things that are helpful for you all and enabling you to better utilize HubSpot and grow your businesses. So, okay, I should put it in the chat. Thank you all. Jeremy, I didn't even think it was nonsense. It was just lovely. I appreciate all of your input, and thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and for taking the time to really be such great members of our community.
Great. Thank you for being here. Thanks everyone for joining, and yeah, have a great Tuesday. Hope to see you all back next week.
Bye, everybody. See you next week.
Hi, everyone.